Bonjour and hello again. Welcome to Unit 2. In Unit 2, Unit 1, of course, was dedicated to learning the 60 most common verbs and to learning to talk about especially the school environment, a classroom situation. Unit 2 is devoted to learning how to talk about your daily routine, things you do on a regular basis, Monday through Friday or Monday through Sunday. I say Monday through Sunday because in the French calendar, Monday is the first day of the week, not Sunday. And also, we're beginning to develop the ability to read the French language in an elementary fashion. We'll start with some simple reading at first. We'll work with phonics, understanding the sounds that certain combinations of letters make in French. I'll focus a lot on pronunciation, how to avoid sounding like a foreigner when you speak the French language. And we'll learn how to tell time as well, so that as you're talking about some of these daily routine activities, like I wake up, I get up, or I go to bed, you'll be able to tell about specifically when it is you do each of those activities on a usual basis. So that's the overarching theme of Unit 2 is learning to talk about your daily routine and developing the skill of reading. The first two lessons in Unit 2, as you already hopefully have you've done these lessons, and so you've already learned this fact. These two lessons are about interrogatives, words which help us to ask more specific kinds of questions than what you already learned in Unit 1. In Unit 1, you learned that you can use the expression est-ce que, or you can reverse the subject and the verb in order to form a question. You also may remember you heard at one time n'est-ce pas, which is the third fashion in which a question can be asked. That's called an end question. N'est-ce pas meaning, isn't that right? But the primary two means in the first unit that you learned were inversion, subject and verb being reversed, and est-ce que, in order to form a question. In these two lessons here, at the beginning of Unit 2, you're learning how to use interrogative words. Who, how, what, where, why, when, how many, how much, and which. And these interrogatives almost invariably are going to be, actually they could use either one of the two approaches, est-ce que or inversion. For example, let's take one which you've already been exposed to. Use quand. Quand is this, and I'll explain in a second if you don't know this, what this refers to. Like, quand est-ce que tu te lèves, or à quelle heure est-ce que tu te lèves. I can either say, quand est-ce que tu te lèves, or quand te lèves-tu. So both means of forming a question are possible with the interrogatives, but the interrogative goes in the initial position in the sentence, right off the bat. It goes first in the sentence. So let's go through the interrogatives that you hopefully have already been exposed to, and let's talk about some of the eccentricities of each one, or certain ones which you need to understand before you start using them on a regular basis. The first of them is, you may have seen this picture. It probably was a still picture of me going like this. You see 1, 2, 3. No, you see people's names, like I don't remember what the names are, 3 different names. And what I'm saying with this word, which is qui. I'm looking at a group of people and trying to pick one or two out, some specific individuals, and I'm asking a question about these unknown individuals, and that question is who. Qui. Par exemple, qui habite dans cette maison? Who lives in that house over there? Or ici, qui comprend le français? Who understands French in this big group of people out in front of me? Qui can refer to one person. Qui could refer to multiple people as well. Okay? Another example would be chez vous. Qui prépare le petit déjeuner? In your home, who is it that prepares breakfast? I started off with qui. That's the point I need to bring up about qui. That's the eccentricity, you might say, the unique aspect about qui. So let me explain quickly first. Qui is the subject of a sentence. It can be the subject of a sentence. Qui, meaning who, in the initial position in the sentence, followed by a verb, is serving as a subject. Qui habite dans cette maison? Who lives? Qui habite? Notice that I said habite. I didn't say habiter. I chopped this, just like I do when I'm saying il habite or elle habite. Qui, in the same way, is in the third person. That means I'm talking about someone, And I could be speaking about one, I could be asking a question about multiple people, but qui itself is a singular word, so I'm going to handle it just like I do il and elle. I'm going to chop the verb and say qui habite dans cette maison. Notice with qui habite, because qui is the subject of the sentence, I don't use inversion. I don't need to use est que to form the question. I just put qui in the initial position and then the verb that follows it. Or qui parle français? Who speaks French? Qui parle français? Qui in the initial position, the verb following it, I chop it, qui parle français. It's just like in English. Who speaks French? Or who lives in that house? Qui habite dans cette maison? Okay, so qui is a little different from all the other interrogatives in that you don't use est que or inversion, and in fact there is a second way to use qui as the subject of a question, and it's the following expression: qui est-ce qui? Sounds rather redundant, but qui est-ce qui habite dans cette maison? Or qui est-ce qui parle français ici? I say qui, then I did use est que, and I follow by the word qui again. And then habite dans cette maison. Qui est-ce qui parle français? Huh? What does that mean? As opposed to who lives in that house? Who speaks French? What is qui est-ce qui habite dans cette maison? Qui est-ce qui parle français? It's who is it that, if you want to translate it literally to English, who is it that lives in that house? Or who is it that speaks French here? Just like in English, we can say who lives here, or who is it that lives here? In French, there are two ways to say the same idea, express the same idea. Qui habite dans cette maison? Qui est-ce qui habite dans cette maison? So qui is a little particular. There are two ways you could say that basically the same thing, and it does not require est que or inversion when you simply want to put qui in the initial position and follow it by the verb, okay? So the key is maybe it's a bad one to start with, but I had to go with who, how, what, where, why, when, or how many, how much, and which, or I wouldn't remember all the different interrogatives to present to you. So the second, who, how is comment, comment. This should be the look on my face of a befuddled old man. Well, the old man I've got down, but the befuddled, maybe you didn't catch that. It's comment est-ce que tu apprends le français? Ou bien, comment est-ce que tu vas à l'école? Okay? In those two questions, comment est-ce que tu apprends le français? Comment meaning how? How? But how is it possible? Comment est-ce que tu apprends le français? How do you learn French? Or comment est-ce que... what was the second question I asked? Je ne sais plus. Oui, comment est-ce que tu vas à l'école? How do you go to school? Notice in each of those two examples there, I used est que. I put comment in the initial position, followed it with est que, and then I came up with the subject and the verb. Comment est-ce que tu parles français? Et comment est-ce que tu... non, comment est-ce que tu apprends le français? Comment est-ce que tu vas à l'école? Notice the tu vas are in the usual order, subject first, verb second, because they're preceded by est que. Now, I can also use inversion with the interrogatives. So I can take tu parles, for example, tu parles. I start off with the interrogative that goes in the first position, and that's comment. Comment, and I take tu parles, and I invert them. And I say, comment parles-tu le français? Comment parles-tu le français? The idea is, how is it that? How is it possible that? Comment se fait-il que? Comment parles-tu français? Comment apprends-tu le français? That's better. How do you learn French? Comment, I think tu vas, comment vas-tu à l'école? How do you go to school? How is it? Do you take a bus? Do you walk? Do you go in a car? Okay, comment vas-tu à l'école? So there I used inversion. Therefore, except for with qui, with comment and all the other interrogatives that follow, I can use either est que or inverting the subject and the verb, okay, in order to form the question. But I want to keep the interrogative in the initial position. The third of the... What was the first one? What was this? Remember? I'm picking people out of a group, a crowd, for example. Qui, okay, qui. And the second one I just presented to you was... this one here. What is this? Yeah, it's comment. Comment. By the way, comment has another meaning. Comment, which means how. How is it? How do you do this? This other meaning is actually, what'd you say? Remember my story about the people down in Alabama? Kind of sounds like that. Mr. Nesbitt, what'd you say? Comment can mean, what did you say? Or I didn't hear what you said. What? What was it you said? In French, typically you won't say quoi for what. You will say comment. Comment. And that has the meaning of, what did you say? I didn't understand what you said. Comment. You want them to repeat something. Okay, so that's a secondary meaning, not it's an interrogative, but it's a secondary use of an interrogative in French, not the primary one. Okay, the third of these, the third is this right here. Let's take some object here, which is maybe not real recognizable. I'll turn it upside down so you can't see what it is necessarily. It's holding it right there, and I look at it and qu'est-ce que c'est? Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça? Que means what? And I say, what? What is this thing? Qu'est-ce que c'est? Que, which means what, okay, is placed in the initial position in the sentence, followed by est-ce que, and then a subject and a verb, or initial position in the sentence, and then an inverted subject and the verb. So if I want to say, qu'est-ce que tu as dans la poche? Qu'est-ce que tu as? Qu'est-ce que is, I'm sorry, it's over here. Que is followed by est-ce que, all right, and then tu as, you have, dans la poche, in your pocket. Qu'est-ce que tu as dans la poche? What do you got in your pocket? Okay? Ce n'est pas ton affaire, it's none of your business. Qu'est-ce que tu as dans la poche? Okay, the que goes in the initial position. And notice how que, it's one of those short words, ends in the sound followed by a vowel. What it does, it's followed by est-ce que, and a vowel sound starts est-ce que, so qu'est-ce que, all right? Qu'est-ce que tu as dans la poche? And the other type of question is inversion. So I could say, qu'as-tu dans la poche? Which is not quite as common, but qu'as-tu dans la poche? Qu'est-ce que tu as dans la poche? Okay, those are the two ways to form that question with the interrogative que. By the way, qu'est-ce que tu as has another meaning. Qu'est-ce que tu as, which sounds like, what do you have? Qu'est-ce que tu as? And it does have that meaning, but it has another sense when you say, mais qu'est-ce que tu as, toi? Qu'est-ce que tu as means, what's the matter with you? What do you have? Which literally is, what do you have? But the sense in French is, what's wrong with you? Qu'est-ce que tu as? That's a good one to learn when your little brother is bothering you. Donc, qu'est-ce que tu as dans la poche, for example? So we have three interrogatives so far. We have qui. Okay, I'm trying to pick someone out, find someone in response to my question. Qui. The second was, right, comment, how, comment. The third, which we just learned, was this right here. I don't recognize this thing. Que, that means what? Que, like qu'est-ce que. And the fourth, here we go. It's this. Looks like, that's Spanish. Looks like chercher, doesn't it? Looks like I'm saying the verb chercher, but I'm using it not as a verb, but as the interrogative in the sentence to ask the question where, and in French, that's où. Pretty easy. Où. Okay? Où est-ce que tu habites? Where do you live? Or où est-ce que tu vas? Where are you going? Où est-ce que tu vas? Où est-ce que tu habites? Où est-ce que tu as mis mon argent? Ah oui, c'est là, d'accord. So où means where. Now, you've heard où before, and you're probably wondering, wait a second. Sometimes you give an answer, Mr. Nesbitt. You say, I can't think of an example. I'll just make up one here. Il habite près de chez moi, ou il n'habite pas loin de chez moi. And I give two different options, and I put ou in between. Well, that means or. And that's not the same word. It's spelled slightly different. There's an accent mark difference within that word. But the sound is the same. So this ou is this idea where, in the way in which you ask a question. Now, I've given you two examples of questions with ou, like où est-ce que tu habites and où est-ce que tu vas. Of course, you can use inversion too. Où habites-tu or où vas-tu also. Okay? Fifth of the, so what are the four we've had so far? We've had, what's this? Qui? Comment? The third one is this one. Que? And then the fourth we just had was this. What was this? Où. Très bien. Okay, this one, I don't know if you know who Oliver and Hardy were. That's a long time ago for young people here. But Oliver and Hardy, Oliver Hardy, how'd it go? It was Stanley Laurel. He played the part of Hardy, I think. Anyway, there was a comedy team, and one of the two of them, Stanley Laurel, would go like this when he was confused. He'd scratch the top of his head and blink his eyes and say, it's a fine mess you've gotten us into this time, Ollie. And he would this this is the gesture I use for why a person completely perplexed. Okay, and in French this word is pourquoi. You may have heard this before. You ever seen the movie South Pacific? It's another old movie, even old, not quite as old as Laurel and Hardy. In the movie, there's a real pretty song sung by some kids in the South Pacific who are French speaking, and it's Dites-moi pourquoi la vie est belle. Dites-moi pourquoi. So you may have heard the word pourquoi before in that particular song. Dites-moi pourquoi means tell me why la vie est belle, why life is beautiful. Dites-moi pourquoi la vie est belle. So pourquoi means why. So let me use it in a couple of sentences. Pourquoi est-ce que vous apprenez le français? Mais pourquoi est-ce que vous apprenez le français? Huh? Why do you learn French? What got into you guys? Or pourquoi est-ce que je suis fatigué? Pourquoi est-ce que je suis fatigué? Why am I tired? What's wrong with me? Qu'est-ce que j'ai? Pourquoi est-ce que je suis fatigué? Now I could again, just like in the last or previous interrogatives, I can also use inversion. Pourquoi apprenez-vous le français? Instead of pourquoi est-ce que vous apprenez le français? Pourquoi apprenez-vous le français? Okay, so that's pourquoi. So we have 5 interrogatives so far. Who, how, what, where, when, why. That was qui, comment, and then que, which is usually going to be followed by est-ce que, so it's usually going to sound like qu'est-ce que, and then où, n'est-ce pas? Où, and the last one, pourquoi. Well, the 6th one is one which is really, the picture is probably a little confusing to you because nobody wears wristwatches anymore, but that was the original intent 75 years ago when I started making the Ulat. This right here was my wristwatch. Maybe it's a little large, maybe a little unwieldy, but nonetheless, here's my wristwatch here. And when I point at it, I'm asking when. And the word in French is quand. Quand est-ce que tu pars pour aller à l'école? When do you leave to go to school? Quand est-ce que tu pars pour aller à l'école? Quand. Now, quand can really have be looking for 2 different kinds of answers. Quand could be asking, okay, in the great scope of things, as far as the sequence of your activities in your life, where does going to school fit in? Does it come before you have breakfast or after you have breakfast? And so quand can be asking a question where I'm looking for the order in which you do things. Quand est-ce que tu pars pour aller à l'école? The answer could be, bon, je vais à l'école après le petit déjeuner. Après is after. Je vais à l'école après le petit déjeuner. There I'm just trying to find before or after. When do you do such and such a thing? Now, if you want to find out the time specifically when something is done, you want the time, then you're going to use the expression, instead of quand, you use à quelle heure. À quelle heure? At what time? À quelle heure est-ce que tu pars pour aller à l'école? À quelle heure est-ce que tu vas à l'école? Okay, so quand or à quelle heure both have the sense of when, but à quelle heure is looking for a time, a specific time, whereas quand can have the meaning of at what time, but more likely it's just asking like, do you do it before or after something or other? Okay, so up to this point, as far as the interrogatives are concerned, we have, what's this? Qui, and then comment, and then what's this? Où, and then pourquoi, and then I skipped one. Yeah, this one. Que, mais qu'est-ce que c'est que ce truc? Que, and then last of all, we just learned it, there are 2 possibilities here, quand or à quelle heure. Quand or à quelle heure. And they both mean when, but à quelle heure is asking for a time specifically. Okay, we got 3 to go. Who, how, what, where, why, when, yes. Let's take how much first. How much I represent with this idea. For example, combien est-ce que tu regardes la télé? Combien de temps est-ce que tu consacres à regarder la télé? Combien est-ce que tu regardes la télé? Beaucoup ou un peu. And I think it's probably the gesture you see, the picture you see in the Ulat is this right here, I think, for a lot as opposed to just a little. Combien est-ce que tu regardes la télé? Ah, je regarde la télé. Je regarde beaucoup. Je regarde beaucoup la télé. Oh, je regarde peu. Je regarde très peu la télé. Okay? So, combien is going to be, is asking for, I guess, a relative quantity. It's not asking for a relative amount. It's not asking for a specific quantity like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right? So a lot or a little or not too much. Another example, a question like that. Combien de devoirs est-ce que tu fais chaque soir? Combien de devoirs? Actually, not a good example. That's what I'm going to come to that one next. Let me try another one here. Combien dors-tu chaque nuit? Huh? Combien est-ce que tu dors chaque nuit? So there are the two different ways in which a question can be formed with an inversion or est-ce que. Combien est-ce que tu dors chaque nuit, each night? So how much do you sleep each night? I'm looking for like a lot or a little or just a bit. And then the other form was take the tu and dors and invert them. Combien dors-tu chaque nuit? Okay? So it's just another example of combien when it has a sense of how much. Combien, and then it's followed by the subject and the verb inverted, or est-ce que and the subject and the verb. Okay? However, there's this idea of how many. Now I'm looking for a quantity. Okay? I want you to quantify it, like combien de... I'll use this one, why not? Combien d'heures est-ce que tu dors chaque nuit? Combien d'heures dors-tu chaque nuit? Now, heures are hours. So if I say combien d'heures est-ce que tu dors chaque nuit? I'm saying how many hours do you sleep each night? You say, ah, je dors 8 heures. Je dors 8 heures, à peu près. Okay? Now, when I said combien d'heures, I told you heure means hours, right? What's the de? It was combien de. Combien d'heures? Well, when you're following combien and you're asking for a quantity, like 1 or 2 or 3, 4, 5, or of whatever you're talking about, and combien is going to be followed by a noun, like how many hours, how many brothers, how many friends, how many pages of homework, okay? Combien will be followed by the word de. Combien de. And this is how many as opposed to how the idea in English, opposed to the idea of how much, okay? Combien, let's say, how many brothers do you have? Combien de frères? How many brothers? Combien de frères est-ce que tu as? Combien de frères est-ce que tu as? Or combien de frères as-tu? Let's try another example. How many classes do you have? A class is a group of students who attend a class, but let's take the idea of a course, courses that you study in school. Combien de cours est-ce que tu suis? Well, forget the tu suis, that means you take. In French, it uses a different verb than you'd anticipate. It's not this verb here. But combien de cours est-ce que tu suis? Just trust me, the suis is a verb. Combien de cours? A cours is a class, in the sense of a course that you take in school, like math or science or whatever. Combien de cours? Notice I say combien de because cours is a noun. I'm asking for the quantity of classes. Combien de cours est-ce que tu suis? Or combien de cours suis-tu? Okay? So, up to this point, we've seen, what's this? Qui, and then comment, que, où, pourquoi, quand, or à quelle heure, if you want a specific time, quand, okay? And then, combien, it really could, if the still image could move, it would look like this. A whole bunch or a whole little. This is combien, and then here, but the gesture, by the way, or the image, by the way, you'll see in the Ulat, is a picture of me going like this. I'm counting, and I think you see in the picture 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. Je suis en train d'énumérer, en fait. I'm counting. Yeah, I'm counting. And this is going to be combien de, the idea of how many of some things. Okay. Well, the ninth, the last of the interrogatives: who, how, what, where, why, how many, how much, or how much, how many. And the last one is I'm looking at one option or another option. Okay. Let's say two different things here. Both. Here we go. Two pictures of two different people. Okay? Quel homme, I can say lequel, but quel homme est plus vieux? Is older, plus vieux. Quel homme est plus vieux? Cet homme-ci ou cet homme-là? Alors, quel homme est plus vieux? I'm asking, more commonly, I guess you'd say lequel des hommes. So maybe I should pick out another example. But nonetheless, I'm saying which. This is an option I'm dealing with here. Quel homme... ah oui, pourquoi pas. Ici. Quel homme parle français? Aucun de ces deux hommes parle français. Quel homme parle espagnol? Il parle espagnol. Which man speaks French or speaks Spanish? And I said that the younger fellow there speaks Spanish. Quel is the idea of which. Which. Okay, now quel, if you're describing, let's say, which man over here? This young man or this old man up here? Quel homme est votre professeur? Which man is your teacher? Well, it's this guy. I'm choosing between two options, and I use the word quel to communicate the idea of which. Or on this side, quelle femme de ces deux ici, quelle femme prépare le dîner chez les Nesbitt? Which of these women prepares dinner in the Nesbitt household? Well, it's this one up here. Cette femme prépare le dîner. So which? When you're saying which, it's quel. But between this quel and this quel, once you can see these words in written form, you'll find that they're spelled differently because I'm talking about males or a masculine subject or masculine noun and females or a feminine noun. So there's a difference in spelling, but for the time being, all you need to know is that quel, that sound right there, is how you say which when you're choosing between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different options. Quel. Okay? So let me try another one here. Quel temps fait-il? Oh, you've heard that expression, haven't you? Quel temps fait-il? When I say quel temps fait-il, we say in English, what is the weather? But when I say quel in French and quel temps fait-il, the idea in my mind is which type of weather pattern, condition, is currently the one which is in effect. Quel temps fait-il? Or quelle heure est-il is another expression you've heard. All right. In that sentence, you think we say in English, what time is it? In French, the idea is which of the different hours of the day is the current one. Quelle heure est-il? Now those are kind of vague ideas for you. Let me try something a little better. I'm not coming up with good examples here. Ok. Voici non, j'ai besoin de quelque chose de plus petit. Voici un dollar, d'accord? Je mets le dollar ici, et puis je ferme la main, et je mélange un peu, et puis voilà. Dans quelle main se trouve le dollar, le billet d'un dollar? Dans quelle main se trouve l'argent? In which hand is the money located? Dans quelle main? Main is a hand, la main. So, quelle main? Dans quelle main est-ce que j'ai mis l'argent? Okay, by the way, which one is it in? Oui, c'est celle-ci, voilà. Okay, donc, quel is the idea of which? So we have, to summarize, we have qui, and que, and comment, and où, pourquoi, quand, or à quelle heure, combien, hein? And combien de, hein? Combien de garçons, combien de filles, and last of all, quel, when you're trying to choose between different options. Which, okay. Now let's see if we can put all those interrogatives into some sentences. We're going to look right now at Unit 2, Lesson 2, Section 5. Here we go. Okay, now in this section here, you see some statements you simply have to form. That's not too complicated. What was this one again? What was that? That's the picture that represents this idea. Yes, it's qui. So how would you say this sentence? Who is the man? The verb is, of course, is être. Je suis, tu es, il est. Il est. And so we're talking about somebody. At this point, he's relatively unknown. We're trying to figure out who he is. And so we're going to use the form est of the verb. That's called the third person singular. So how would you say the sentence again? Yeah, qui est l'homme? Qui est l'homme? Normally I'd probably say, if you knew how to say this, qui est cet homme? Who is that man? The idea of ce or cet, which means this or that, can mean this or that. That is something you'll learn in Unit 3. Those are called demonstrative adjectives. But so we'll just keep it simple. Qui est l'homme? Who is the man? All right, let's try this one right here. Say that statement there. Go ahead and say it. Qui sont les hommes? Now, notice I changed the sont. The qui didn't change. Of course, that's the important thing. It's in the initial position of the sentence. But sont is the third person plural. That means it's the same as if I'm saying these guys over here. Ils sont, je ne sais pas, ils sont fatigués, et elles sont heureuses, or elles sont tristes, or quelque chose comme ça. When you're saying they, you're going to use the third person plural form of être, which is sont. Okay, and that's why I said qui sont les hommes, because we're talking about more than one man. Notice in both of these examples here, qui est l'homme, or qui est cet homme, et qui sont les hommes. In those two sentences, I didn't use est que, and I didn't use inversion. So qui, serving as the subject of the sentence, qui sont ces hommes, well actually, qui, just put it that way, doesn't require either est que or inversion. Okay, we just put it in the initial position, and then we follow it by a verb. Okay, let's go on to numéro 7. Here was the second of the interrogatives. This was, remember what this was? Yeah, comment, comment. So here we want to say, we have you do homework. How do you do the homework? How do you do the homework? How would you say that? You're going to start off with the interrogative and either use est que or invert the blue-shirted and the red-shirted guy, the subject and the verb. How would you say that? Okay, I'll use est que in my answer. Comment est-ce que tu fais les devoirs? Comment est-ce que tu fais les devoirs? Or I could have, if I used inversion, just say comment, and no est-ce que, just invert. Fais-tu les devoirs? Comment est-ce que tu fais les devoirs? Comment fais-tu les devoirs? How do you do the homework? It's probably a question you've asked when you've been bemused, perplexed before, and one of your friends has to help you with your homework. How do you do the homework? Comment est-ce que tu fais les devoirs? Comment fais-tu les devoirs? Try the next sentence. Here we're talking about making a pizza. How do you make a pizza? Very good question, which I could not answer. Go ahead and say it. How do you prepare a pizza? Right. Okay, yeah, tu prépares. So I'm going to say, put the interrogative in the initial position of the sentence, in the first position. Comment est-ce que tu prépares une pizza? Or, comment prépares-tu une pizza? Comment est-ce que tu prépares une pizza? Comment prépares-tu une pizza? Okay, très bien. The third kind, the third... Attends un petit instant, je vais boire de l'eau. Parce que je parle depuis longtemps. Et puis maintenant, ça c'est... What was this again? This third interrogative? Yeah, it's que. What? Que. And here we want to say, this is tu veux. So what do you want? What do you want? How would you say that? Yeah, the two ways, of course, the two ways. Two ways to form a question. So you're going to start off with the interrogative, que, and then est-ce que, but remember que ending in the sound and being a short little word ending in the sound and then est-ce que, we're going to do this. So qu'est-ce que tu veux? Qu'est-ce que tu veux? Very commonly said, especially between a brother and sister who are irritated with each other. Mais qu'est-ce que tu veux? What do you want? Or que veux-tu? Either way. Qu'est-ce que tu veux? Que veux-tu? Okay. Ensuite, try this one here. Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça? Tu as dans le casier. Okay, you want to say, what do you got in your locker? What do you have in your locker? A locker is un casier. Le casier. And this is the idea of dans. Okay. So what have you got in your locker? How would you say that? Start off with que. And again, it's le casier. Okay. You'll start off with que, and then est-ce que tu as? Qu'est-ce que tu as dans le casier? Or qu'as-tu? It's probably a little less common, but tu as. Qu'as-tu dans le casier? Qu'est-ce que tu as dans le casier? Ensuite, here we have the fourth of the interrogatives. It's où, and so here we have tu habites. Ask, where do you live? Where do you live? You try and say it both ways. Say the question in two different fashions. All right. So you start off with the question word, the interrogative. Où, follow it with est-ce que tu habites? That's the first way. Or take tu habites, invert them, don't use est-ce que, and say que, I'm sorry, où habites-tu? So, où est-ce que tu habites? Or où habites-tu? Where do you live? Okay, ensuite, try this one. Here we have where do you go? Or in other words, where are you going? How would you say that without my help? Say it both ways. Okay, it could be où est-ce que tu vas? Où est-ce que tu vas? Or où vas-tu? Où vas-tu? Où est-ce que tu vas? Try the next one. Here we have pourquoi? Pourquoi? All right. Say this question. I won't even translate it for you. Say this question. One or two ways, I don't care, but just say one of them at least. Okay. You see the blue shirt and the red shirted guy there. You have tu pars. Tu pars. Make it a question. Est-ce que tu pars or pars-tu? Make it a more specific question using an interrogative, a question word, and we're going to say why. Why are you leaving? Pourquoi pars-tu? Or pourquoi est-ce que tu pars? Why are you leaving? Pourquoi est-ce que tu pars? Pourquoi pars-tu? Try this next one here. Here it's I want to translate it. You just try and say it. Okay. All right. So here you have. Let's just form the question without using the interrogative first. Tu es, talking about être, talking about your feelings, your emotions. Tu es triste. Tu es triste. Okay? Now we're going to turn it into a question. Est-ce que tu es triste? Or es-tu triste? Those are the two ways to form the question. Now, let's make it more specific. If you're looking for more specific information, put the interrogative in the initial position. Ask why. Why are you sad? Yeah, it's pourquoi est-ce que tu es triste? Or pourquoi es-tu triste? Pourquoi est-ce que tu es triste? Why are you sad? Pourquoi est-ce que tu es triste? Okay, ensuite, here we've got, what was this? Remember this? Actually, two ways to say it. We're going to stick with the first way, which was quand. Quand, for when. Quand. Quand. Okay? Go ahead and try and form a question with these three images there, corresponding to those three images. Okay, here's the verb se lever, se lever. Remember that se is going to change and adapt itself to the subject tu. So you aren't going to say tu se lèves, you're going to say tu te lèves. Okay, for you get up, tu te lèves. So this would be, therefore, quand est-ce que tu te lèves? Or, quand te lèves-tu? Quand est-ce que tu te lèves? What time do you get up? Quand est-ce que tu te lèves? Or quand te lèves-tu? Now I just said at what time do you get up. Really, quand is more the sense of when. So when do you get up? If you wanted a specific time, you would use the expression à quelle heure. À quelle heure est-ce que tu te lèves? Or à quelle heure te lèves-tu? For at what time do you get up? Let's try another one like that, using quand or à quelle heure. Okay, here's tu étudies. So ask the person, when do you study? And then try asking, at what time do you study? See if you can say both questions. Okay, so you study is simply tu, you have étudier, drop the a, étudie, tu étudies, for you study. Let's turn it into a question. Étudies-tu or est-ce que tu étudies? Now, let's turn it into a more specific question and add the word when do you study? So we put the interrogative in the first position of the sentence. Quand est-ce que tu étudies? Or quand étudies-tu? And the answer to that could be the time, but probably more like is going to be like after dinner or something like that. J'étudie après le dîner. Quand est-ce que tu étudies? Ben, j'étudie après le dîner. Ou j'étudie avant de me coucher. Okay? But if I want the specific time which the person starts studying, I don't know why I care, but I would say, à quelle heure? À quelle heure est-ce que tu étudies? Ben, je commence à étudier à 20 heures et je me couche à 22 heures à peu près. Okay? À quelle heure est-ce que tu commences à étudier? Or à quelle heure commences-tu à étudier? Let's go on to the next one. Here we have how many, okay? Not how much, like a lot or a little. Well, I want a specific number here. I want a quantity. So remember what this one was? Yeah, it's combien, but it's not just combien. It's going to be followed by a noun, a thing. In fact, 4 things here. All right, it's just about the size of my lunch right there. Okay, that would be, yeah, sandwich. And so I want combien de. When I'm going to follow the idea of how many by a specific noun, a thing, I don't use just combien, but I say combien de. So combien de sandwich? How many sandwiches? Combien de sandwich? Now I form the question. Est-ce que tu veux or veux-tu? How many sandwiches you want? You see how useful this is? These interrogatives, who, how, where, why, when, how many, how much. Think how often a question like that is asked. Like your mom says, how many sandwiches do you want for lunch? Combien de sandwiches veux-tu pour le déjeuner? Ou, combien de sandwiches est-ce que tu veux pour le déjeuner? Very, very common that something like that would be said. So this is pretty important. Let's try this. How many pens you got? How many pens do you have? Try that. Yeah, you start with combien de, and then the word for pens, which is stylo. Keep going. Combien de stylo? Yeah, the idea of you have is tu as. And so, combien de stylo est-ce que tu as? Or combien de stylo as-tu? Okay, we're almost through with all these interrogatives. These are good practice sentences here. L'argent. I'm not asking for how many specific dollars do you have, but here the idea is a lot or a little. So we would say in English, how much? How much money I got is what this question is. Try and say it in at least one way in French. Okay, since I'm going to follow the idea of how much with a noun, I'm going to say combien. Excuse me. Yeah, that's right. Combien de, and then the word argent. Combien d'argent, and de argent is going to do this. Combien d'argent? How much money? Combien d'argent as-tu? Or est-ce que tu as? Combien d'argent est-ce que tu as? Combien d'argent as-tu? Try this down here. Yes. How much homework do you do? That's what this idea is here. How much homework do you do? How would you say that? I want to know beaucoup ou un peu ou pas mal. Okay, since I'm following the idea of how much with a noun, which is devoir, right, combien de. So combien de devoirs est-ce que tu fais? Or combien de devoirs fais-tu? For how much homework do you do? Now, last of all, we're going to choose between a couple different options here. The idea of which could be 1 or 2 people, could be 6 people, but I'm looking for one person among that group there, right here. And so, which man is the teacher? Maybe they're a group of 3 or 4 men standing around outside the classroom, and I'm new to the school. Which man's the teacher? I say to somebody. How do you say that? What was this word for when you have options and you're choosing one from among those options? Remember I talked about these which man or which woman, okay? So, quel homme est le professeur? Now I can, there's another way to say that in French, which is a little more complex, which is which of these men is the teacher? I would say lequel des hommes est le professeur de cette classe. But just keep it simple here. So which man? Quel homme? Quel homme est le professeur? And down here, this one right here. Which men are French is the idea. Which men are French? Maybe there's 100 men out there, and I know just certain ones are French, the rest are all Americans. How do I say that? Yeah. Quel, I could be looking for 1 or I could be looking for 6 of this larger group. I would say quel homme, now the plural, sont français. I don't want to say et because that would be like saying which men is French. I want the plural, the third person plural of the verb être, excuse me, and so that's going to be sont. Quels hommes sont français? Now I'm actually intentionally not saying this quite right. It really would be quels hommes sont français, ou lesquels de ces hommes sont français. Quels hommes sont français? The z in there is because if you could see this in written form, quel changes its spelling based upon is it followed by a masculine or a feminine noun, a singular or a plural one. And when it's spelling, when the quel ends with the letter S, which you can't normally hear, but it's followed by a vowel sound, this is called a liaison. You've heard me talk about this a little bit so far. That S is going to be pronounced, so I'd say quels hommes sont français et quels hommes ne le sont pas. Whatever. Okay, good. That's an introduction to forming sentences using interrogatives. Let's go now to this activity right here, where you're going to see an answer. You're going to be proposed an interrogative to use, and you're going to form the question that would get this answer. If you know the TV show Jeopardy, I don't know if it exists anymore, but where you hear an answer and you have to come up with a question which corresponds to that answer. That's what we're doing here. So here I'll say the statement, and you can see after the arrow here that this is the interrogative. That's the word que, which you're supposed to use in your question. Let's see if you can form a question. J'étudie le français. J'étudie le français. Que. What's the question? By the way, when you form the question, don't say tu to me. The je is Mr. Nesbitt. So when you form this question, make sure you say vous. Show a little respect. Vous. Okay, form the question. Don't forget this. Don't forget that. Okay. So in English, that would be, the answer was, I study French. What would be the question in English to get the answer, I study French? Probably what do you study? What do you study, right? And then in French would be que est-ce que vous étudiez? Qu'est-ce que vous étudiez? Que est-ce que, remember it's qu'est-ce que vous étudiez? Or que étudiez-vous? Qu'est-ce que vous étudiez is probably more common. So qu'est-ce que vous étudiez, Monsieur Nesbitt? Ah ouais, j'étudie le français. Ensuite, j'étudie avec le Ulat, avec le programme du Ulat. Okay? J'étudie avec le Ulat. So how would you use comment to get that answer? Yeah, my statement was, j'étudie avec le Ulat. I study with the Ulat, or I learn French with the Ulat. The question would have to be something along the lines of how. How do you learn French? Or how do you study French? And that would be, comment est-ce que vous étudiez le français? Or if you want to use learn, combien est-ce que vous apprenez le français? Or, combien, I said combien. Comment étudiez-vous le français? Comment apprenez-vous le français? Okay, try the third one right here. That's enough étudier. Let's try one down here a little farther. Oh, that's not, we got to use this interrogative, so I'll go ahead and do this. J'étudie dans mon bureau, dans le bureau. J'étudie dans mon bureau. I study in my office. Use this interrogative here, which is où. Ask a question. So you start off with a question. Où, the interrogative, où est-ce que vous étudiez? Where do you study? Well, I study in my office. Où est-ce que vous étudiez? Or, où étudiez-vous, Monsieur Nesbitt? Ensuite, here's pourquoi, right? Pourquoi? And this question looks to me like, je veux aller en France. Je veux aller en France. What's the question? Well, if you ask me the question, pourquoi est-ce que vous voulez aller en France? Why do you want to go to France? You're not giving the question that gets this answer. You're giving the logical question that would follow this answer. Okay, the question that would get this answer is, why do you study French? Oh, because I want to go to France. Why do you study French? So try it again in case you came up with the wrong question. How would you say, why do you study French? Remember, do in English is nothing more than the equivalent of est-ce que. It's a way to form a question. Okay, you start off with an interrogative. Pourquoi? You form the question. Est-ce que vous étudiez le français? Or, pourquoi étudiez-vous le français? Ah, parce que je veux aller en France. Because I want to go to France. Whoa, I want to go to France. Try the next one here. Now we have quand. Quand. And actually, I'm looking for a specific time. So let's not use quand. Let's use à quelle heure. Okay? And here's the statement. J'étudie à 8 heures. J'étudie à 8 heures du matin. What's the question? Okay, so you're asking me, at what time do you study French? So you're going to start off with the interrogative, the question word. À quelle, in this case, I say a question word. It's actually 3 different words, but it's an expression. À quelle heure est-ce que vous étudiez? À quelle heure est-ce que vous étudiez? You could say, quand est-ce que vous étudiez? And it would probably get the same idea across. But I might not, maybe I'll just say, I wouldn't give you a specific time. I'd say, j'étudie pendant le matin, pendant la matinée. I study during the morning. But that wouldn't be quite as precise as what you want. So, à quelle heure is better. So I could say, you could say, à quelle heure est-ce que vous étudiez? Or, à quelle heure étudiez-vous? Ensuite, là, nous avons combien? J'étudie beaucoup. J'étudie beaucoup. How would you ask a question and get that answer? Okay, so you want to say, how much do you study? And so that's combien. Now, is it going to be combien or combien de est-ce que vous étudiez? It's going to be combien and just combien, because combien de is going to be followed by a noun, a thing of some kind, like combien de garçons, how many boys, combien de cours, how many courses or classes. Okay, since it's not being followed by a noun here, it's just being followed by the question itself or the subject and the verb. Just combien est-ce que vous étudiez? Or combien étudiez-vous? Almost done. Let's try. Here we want to have an answer which gets a specific quantity of something. Okay, so I use combien de somethings. How many? In this case, it's how many people. Do you remember the word people? Les gens. Okay, so gens is people. Okay, here the answer here is beaucoup de gens parlent français. Many people speak French. What would the question be? Okay, combien de gens, or combien de personnes, how many people, combien de gens parlent français? And the answer is, beaucoup de gens parlent français. Many people speak French. Combien de personnes parlent français? Okay, ensuite, numéro 8. And last of all, here we're making a choice, and we have options, and we're going to choose one of these particular options. So, quel. This is the interrogative, quel. So I have, je parle espagnol et français. I speak Spanish and French. What's the question that could get that answer? Oh, by the way, the word for language, which is what you probably need in your question, is langue. Langue. Okay, so which languages do you speak? Quelle langue est-ce que vous parlez? Ou quelle langue parlez-vous? Okay, d'accord, c'est bien. Let's go to the test last of all. And we're going to try and see if you can pick out the most appropriate answers to these different... Actually, we're going to pick out not the most appropriate answers. You're going to pick out the most appropriate questions that receive these answers. So this is a little different multiple choice test than we usually take. Usually, you see this statement, which is je veux habiter en France. And you listen to these 4 different options and find which one corresponds to je veux habiter en France. This time, since we're working with questions, these are answers, and you're supposed to find the question that would get this answer, all right? And what we're going to do is I'm going to stop after every one and give you the correct answer. So you answer it for yourself, write it down if you need to, and then I'm going to give you the correct answer. Then we'll go on to number 2, number 3, etc. Here we go. Okay, so this right here is je veux habiter en France. Listen to these 4 options for the questions. If I can find them, here they are. A. Pourquoi est-ce que tu apprends le français? B. Quand tu apprends le français? C. Quand apprends-tu le français? D. Apprends-tu comment le français? Let's listen to those again. A. Pourquoi est-ce que tu apprends le français? B. Quand tu apprends le français? C. Comment apprends-tu le français? D. Apprends-tu comment le français? Okay, make your choice. All right, hopefully you've made your choice. The correct answer is, well, it's not D. And it's not B. Those two have, they're not actually correctly formed questions. The D was, apprends-tu comment le français? Apprends, you want to start off with the interrogative. Who, how, what, where, why, when, how many, how much, and which. And so you're going to start off with, what was the question? Yes. When this, and D said, apprends-tu comment le français? The word comment would have to come in the initial position. Comment apprends-tu le français? Okay, even if it had been said like that, It's the wrong question. How do you learn French? I want to go to France. That's not an answer to that question. How about C? Or how about B? Let's try B next. Is that a valid possibility? Quand tu apprends le français? What's wrong with quand tu apprends le français? Yeah, that's not how you form a question, is it? Quand tu apprends le français? You're going to have to either invert, tu apprends, or you're going to have to use est-ce que, right? So, qu'est-ce que tu apprends? I'm sorry, I use quand. Quand est-ce que tu apprends le français? Or quand apprends-tu le français? But not quand tu apprends le français. That's not a valid question. C is not possible either because comment apprends-tu le français? How do you learn French? Doesn't get this answer. The answer was A. Pourquoi est-ce que tu apprends le français? Why do you learn French? Parce que je vais aller en France. OK. Numéro 2. Look at the statement. Je vends des journaux. I sell newspapers. Je vends des journaux. Je vends des journaux. Et donc, A. Pourquoi vends-tu? B. À quelle heure vends-tu? C. Que vends-tu? D. Qui vend? Listen to those again. And by the way, all four of them are actually legitimately formed questions. Only one of them really is the best question that would get this answer. A. Pourquoi vends-tu? B. À quelle heure vends-tu? C. Que vends-tu? D. Qui vend? Okay, so you made a choice? Hope you made a choice. Okay, A is pourquoi vends-tu? Why do you sell? Oh, I sell newspapers. Those don't really go together, those two answers there, the question and answer. À quelle heure vends-tu? At what time do you sell? I sell newspapers. Not answering the question, is it? D, by the way, was qui vend? Who sells? The person's completely baffled. Qui vend? Who sells? I just told you that I do. So D is not the right one. C is the correct answer. Que vends-tu? What do you sell? Ah, I sell newspapers. Numéro 3. Numéro 3. Je veux $5. Je veux $100. Je veux $100. Okay? Let's see which is the correct question that would get that answer. A. Que dollar veux-tu? B. Quel dollar est-ce que tu veux? C. Quand d'argent est-ce que tu veux? D. Combien d'argent veux-tu? Let's try that again. A. Que dollar veux-tu? B. Quel dollar est-ce que tu veux? C. Quand d'argent est-ce que tu veux? D. Combien d'argent veux-tu? Okay? Only one of those is really responds to the question. It's D, isn't it? It was combien d'argent veux-tu? How much money do you want? I want $5. Combien d'argent? Notice he used combien de, because it's followed by a noun, argent, word for money. Combien d'argent veux-tu? The others, by the way, just que dollar veux-tu? What dollars want you? It's kind of like this person speaking pig Latin in French, I guess. B. Quel dollar est-ce que tu veux? Which dollars do you want? Those over there? Those? No, that doesn't make any sense. And then, quand d'argent est-ce que tu veux? When money do you want? Sorry, that makes no sense. Numéro 4. Okay, this statement is la femme comprend l'allemand. That's the word for German, l'allemand. La femme comprend l'allemand. Okay? A. Which of these four questions will be the right one to get that answer? Comment comprend l'allemand? B. Où comprend-elle l'allemand? C. Qui comprend l'allemand? D. Combien comprend-elle? Okay. So let's try this again. La femme parle allemand. A. Comment comprend l'allemand? B. Où comprend-elle l'allemand? C. Qui comprend l'allemand? D. Combien comprend-elle? Okay. Comment comprend-elle? Would be a decent question to follow this. How much does she understand? Combien comprend-elle? But it would not get this answer. The woman speaks French. That's the question that would precede this answer is going to have to be letter C, which is qui comprend l'allemand? Who speaks or who understands German? By the way, notice again with qui, I don't follow with est-ce que, and I don't invert the subject and the verb. Just qui followed by a verb followed by l'allemand. Qui comprend l'allemand? Okay, numéro 5. Je marche à l'école. Now, if a person tells you where they walk, where they walk, what's going to be probably the interrogative? It's going to get that answer. What's the interrogative word? Who, how, where, why, when, how many, how much, which? Which will get that, and that is going to be used in the question to get this answer. I walk to school. I don't walk to church. I don't walk to downtown. I walk to school. Okay, let's listen to the options. Hopefully that helped you. Comment est-ce que tu vas à l'école? Oh, I was wrong. I led you astray. Let's see if you can. Let's see if you can figure out the right answer, despite the fact that I tried to distract you from the proper answer. Comment est-ce que tu vas à l'école? Qu'est-ce que tu vas à l'école? Avec qui vas-tu à l'école? À quelle heure est-ce que tu vas à l'école? Those are all decent questions, but only one would get the answer. I walk to school. Okay, let me try that again. Je marche à l'école. A. Comment est-ce que tu vas à l'école? B. Qu'est-ce que tu vas à l'école? C. Actually, I say those are all valid ones. B is not valid. What do you go to school? That makes no sense. C. Où est-ce que... non, avec qui est-ce que... Avec qui vas-tu à l'école? D. À quelle heure est-ce que tu vas à l'école? Well, à quelle heure est-ce que tu vas à l'école? Have you made your pick already? I'm going kind of quick because this is a long video. Okay. À quelle heure est-ce que tu vas à l'école? At what time do you go to school? It's a fine question, but it doesn't get the answer. Je marche à l'école. C is... C said, où est-ce que tu fais... No. C said, avec qui est-ce que tu vas? With whom do you go to school? Avec qui est-ce que tu vas à l'école? Good question, but it doesn't get this answer right here. B was nonsensical. Didn't make sense grammatically speaking, or as far as meaning is concerned. And then, so A is the answer. Comment est-ce que tu vas à l'école? I said to you, if someone tells you where they go, what's the obvious interrogative they're going to use? Well, yeah, it could be, où est-ce que tu marches? Where are you walking? Où est-ce que tu marches? Je marche à l'école. But I should have emphasized the means by which you go to school. In other words, how do you go to school is what we really needed here. And that was answer A, I think. Yep. Comment est-ce que tu vas à l'école? How do you go to school? I walk. I don't take the bus. I don't take the train. I don't fly. Je marche à l'école. So, comment est-ce que tu vas à l'école? And that was letter A, 5A. Numéro 6. Sorry for tricking you there. Je fais les devoirs après le dîner. Now the person's telling when they do dinner. And they're not telling the specific time, they're saying in sequence. One thing after another. Give it a shot. I won't help you any more than that. I'll probably fool you again. Again, je fais les devoirs après le dîner. OK. A. Pourquoi est-ce que tu fais les devoirs? B. Quand fais-tu les devoirs? C. Où est-ce que tu fais les devoirs? D. Quand fais-tu les devoirs? That's the same thing as I said. B and D are identical, my answers, and they're both wrong. Listen to them again. A. So this is je fais les devoirs après le dîner. A. Pourquoi est-ce que tu fais les devoirs? B. Quand fais-tu les devoirs? C. Où est-ce que tu fais les devoirs? D. Quand fais-tu les devoirs? Which is the correct answer. When do you do your homework? Well, I do my homework after dinner. Okay? So actually, either answer B or D, since they're identical, would be the correct answer. And if I should write that down, but I have no pen on me. Avez-vous un stylo? Non, vous n'avez pas de stylo? Tant pis. Okay. Numéro 7. Number 7. Je vais, and we're going to go a little faster here because this is dragging on. I'm just going to give you the correct answer. Je vais à l'église. Je vais à l'église. Listen to these 4 possibilities. A. Quand vas-tu à l'église? B. Où vas-tu? C. Quand est-ce que tu vas à l'église? D. Qu'est-ce que tu vas? Listen to that again. A. The answer was, je vais à l'église. He's telling where. All right. A. Quand vas-tu à l'église? B. Où vas-tu? C. Quand est-ce que tu vas à l'église? D. Qu'est-ce que tu vas? Okay. The one which makes most sense is B. Où vas-tu? Where are you going? I'm going to church. Où vas-tu? Où vas-tu? Numéro 8. The answer is, je vois 4 chats. Je vois 4 chats. If the emphasis is upon the quantity of cats this guy sees, Je vois 4 chats. What would the question be? Let's try and see if you can pick it out. A. Quand chat vois-tu? Quand chat vois-tu? B. Combien de chats est-ce que tu vois? Combien de chats est-ce que tu vois? C. Quel chat vois-tu? Quel chat vois-tu? D. Quel chat est-ce que tu vois? Quel chat est-ce que tu vois? Did you pick out the answer there? Yeah, it's going to be B. We're looking for the quantity of cats. How many cats a guy sees. And so it's combien de chats est-ce que tu vois? Numéro 9. Attendez un instant, je change de feuille. Et puis, numéro 9. La fille reste dans l'appartement. La fille reste dans l'appartement. A. Combien reste-t-il dans l'appartement? B. Comment reste dans l'appartement? C. Qui reste dans l'appartement? D. Quel reste dans l'appartement? One more time. A. Combien reste-t-il dans l'appartement? B. Comment reste dans l'appartement? C. Qui reste dans l'appartement? D. Quel reste dans l'appartement? Okay, it's not quel reste dans l'appartement. Which stays in the apartment? It's going to be C. Qui reste dans l'appartement? Who stays in the apartment? The girl stays in the apartment. All right? Qui reste dans l'appartement? Numéro 10. Numéro 10. Donc, je mets le livre sur le lit. I put the book on the bed. I put the book on the bed. Okay? Je mets le livre sur le lit. A. Où mets-tu le livre? B. Où tu mets le livre? C. Quand est-ce que tu mets le livre? D. À quelle heure est-ce que tu mets le livre? Again. A. Où mets-tu le livre? B. Où tu mets le livre? C. Quand est-ce que tu mets le livre? D. À quelle heure est-ce que tu mets le livre? Well, quand and à quelle heure, asking when or at what time, are not questions. We'll get this answer. I put the book, I'm telling where I put it, on the bed, sur le lit. And so it's either A or B, and both of them say, where do you put the bed? But listen to the two of them and see which one is correctly formed. A says, où mets-tu le livre? And B says, où tu mets le livre? Which is the correct one? Où mets-tu le livre? Où tu mets le livre? That's the first one. It's où mets-tu. You can't say où tu mets. You've got to invert or use est-ce que, not to do neither. You can't say où tu mets le livre. It's où mets-tu le livre. Numéro 11. Je prends la voiture. Je prends la voiture. So, 11A. Qui va au supermarché? Does qui really get the answer? Je prends la voiture. I take the car. Who goes to the supermarket? I take the car. And they don't line up, do they? I'm kind of helping you this time, aren't I? B, because we're running out of time. Qui vont au supermarché? Qui vont au supermarché? C. Pourquoi vas-tu au supermarché? D. Comment est-ce que tu vas au supermarché? One more time. A. The statement was, tu vas, je prends la voiture. A. Qui va au supermarché? B. Qui vont au supermarché? C. Pourquoi vas-tu au supermarché? D. Comment est-ce que tu vas au supermarché? Comment est-ce que tu vas au supermarché? It's D is the correct answer. How do you go to the supermarket? Well, I take the car. I don't fly. I don't walk. I don't whatever. Okay. Numéro 12. Je suis fatigué. Je suis fatigué. A. Comment tu veux dormir? B. Pourquoi est-ce que tu veux dormir? C. Où veux-tu dormir? D. Quand veux-tu dormir? Okay, let's try it again. Je suis fatigué. What question got that answer? Comment tu veux dormir? B. Pourquoi est-ce que tu veux dormir? C. Où veux-tu dormir? D. Quand veux-tu dormir? Well, A was completely wrong. Comment tu veux? Just like in the one with où tu mets le livre. In the same way, you can't just leave the subject and the verb without est-ce que in their usual order. If you're going to ask a question, you're going to have to either invert or precede tu. In this case, it's tu veux with est-ce que, either one. So, comment tu veux? What was the question? Comment tu veux dormir? How you want to sleep? it's not a question, right? It's not a correctly formed question. So A is out, all right? D is quand veux-tu dormir? When do you want to sleep? I'm tired. It's not really an answer to the question. C, où veux-tu dormir? Where do you want to sleep? I'm tired. It's not an answer to that question. And then B, pourquoi est-ce que tu veux dormir? Why do you want to sleep? I'm tired. Pourquoi is a good answer. And I too am tired. It's been a long video. You got to be tired. And so I'll let you go. Let me just say that in the next time we get together, we're actually after this particular lesson, in this video you're watching, you're going to move into a series of lessons which tell a story. They're going to tell a story about a fictional American family living in France, and their name is the Richardson family. John and Carol and Kathy and Michael and the baby, John Jr., I think his name is. And so that little family of 5, if you happen to see any, coincidental resemblance to the Nesbitt family, it's merely coincidence. It's just by chance, especially as we get later in the stories. You see, John isn't that good a guy, actually. So there's no actual tie whatsoever to the real Nesbitt family. Nonetheless, it is an American family living in France, and some of them do kind of look like us many years ago. But in any case, that's what you'd be reading about. But why are you reading about them? It's because you're reading about them. You're going to begin the act of elementary reading, developing that skill of elementary reading in lessons 2, 3 through I think 210, more or less. And you'll do more and more elementary reading and more advanced reading as time goes on. So it's pretty exciting. I think we'll only look in the next video at the first half of the story. But in any case, we'll start to talk about reading, about phonics, the sounds that combinations of letters make, and very importantly, we're going to talk about pronunciation. Parce que je ne veux pas que vous parliez français de cette façon avec un accent américain, un accent qui soit grotesque. I don't want you to talk with an accent like that. And hopefully you won't. You haven't seen words in print yet. You've been thinking, why don't you put the words and write them down so we can at least see them? Because if I wrote them down so you'd see them, you would talk like what I just sounded like. Have you ever heard me sound like that speaking French before? That was a horrific American accent speaking French because having seen the words in print too early, I'm using the English phonics system to speak, and de cette façon, je parle français más ou menos, plus ou moins de façon grotesque. Et moi, je ne veux pas que vous parliez de cette façon-là. Je veux que vous ayez un accent plus ou moins authentique, ou le plus authentique possible. I don't want you to sound like that, and therefore we're going to talk about pronunciation. So you can sound as much like a French person and as little like an American as possible when you start using French with actual French people. Ok, ça suffit, nous avons fini. À bientôt, et puis merci beaucoup d'avoir tenu jusqu'à la fin de cette longue vidéo. Au revoir.